Hello and welcome back to Modern Otaku, where all anime is great except for the shit that we don't talk about. Now my last video absolutely blew up after only just a few hours. I got a grand total of 5 views on my last video, and I'm pretty sure that those were actually just from me going to my video page. So obviously, I'm being a little optimistic, but hey, a little optimism never hurt anyone. Anyways, I guess I should probably stop rambling and get on with the actual video. These views aren't going to come on their own. Or are they? Yeah, doubt it, no. So, in this video, we're going to talk about every high school student's favorite subject. No, not that one. Nope, not that one either. Okay, is that even a high school class? Because I never had that one. I would really like to have taken that. Okay, it's history, okay? It's history. What do you mean you don't want to watch a video about history? It's going to be great. The video has... Okay, fine then. Just cut me off mid-sentence, why don't you? Thanks a lot. Anyways, one thing that I haven't really gotten to talk about yet is my love of history. I was a huge fan of history in high school, and I still am now that I'm in college. And one of my favorite periods of history to learn about is the early to mid-20th century. From World War I and the Roaring Twenties to World War II and even the breakout of the Cold War, I can never get enough of it. One thing that I specifically love in that period, though, is the story of the Mafia. Being from an Italian family, I, of course, know all about the Mafia. I even supposedly have Mafia members in my family, though, I've never actually met any of them. I love the stories of the Mafia, from The Godfather to Goodfellas and even The Sopranos. The Mafia is not only a big part of history, but even our entertainment. Still, the crime families in America actually made a huge impact on the rest of the country, and even built one of the most prosperous cities in history. In the middle of the desert, for crying out loud. Only the Mafia could build a city in a desert, and still manage to make money somehow. So, as a lover of anime, and someone who really enjoys the Mafia, it's always really fun when the Mafia gets to be tied into an anime. Now this brings me to the new anime, 91 Days, which is even based in one of my favorite periods of Mafia history, the Prohibition era, which is when the Mafia was just starting to get a sure footing. And believe me when I tell you this, 91 Days is a very enjoyable show, and I highly recommend it. You can even go watch it right now on Crunchyroll. It's really worth the watch. Though, today I'm not actually here to talk about 91 Days. As much as I would love to, the anime hasn't even finished airing yet, and I couldn't even hope to make a video about it yet. No, today I'm talking about an anime that is similar in nature to 91 Days, and even takes place in the same time period of Prohibition, but at the same time is completely different. Today, we're talking about Baccano. Baccano, or Baccano, I'm not really sure how it's pronounced, and no matter how hard I try to find out, I can never get a conclusive answer. Was an anime that aired back in 2007 and 2008, based off of a light novel series written by Ryoga Narita, who would also go on to write the Durarara series later on. The story revolves around a large number of characters who each have connections in one way or another to an elixir that grants the person who drinks it immortality. This elixir causes havoc in not only the streets of New York City, but also on the Grand Train, the Flying Pussyfoot. And no, for those of you who haven't watched the series, I did not make that up. It is the actual name of the train that a large number of events happen on. Luckily for us, most of what I'll be talking about here will be what takes place in New York, so I won't have to keep saying the Flying Pussyfoot. Just saying it makes me want to giggle. Now, there are 5 different groups and families I want to focus on today. The Gandor family, the Russo family, the Genoad gang, the Martillo family, and finally, Issac and Miria. Now, starting with the Genoad gang, they're the smallest gang of the different crime families in the show, and the only mentioned characters in the family are Dallas and his little sister Eve. But Dallas, as it is implied, is a small-time thug who goes around with a group of lackeys. They aren't really on the Mafia level that some of the other families are, but Dallas manages to seriously piss off the Gandor family, and it causes him to vanish for a long amount of time in the series. I won't spoil why, but he and his thugs tend to be reminiscent of the small-time thugs that were popular in the 1930s, and who tried to emulate what the Mafia was doing successfully at the time in the New York area and at different cities around the country. Next, we can talk about the Gandor family and how they tie in with Mafia history. Now, the Gandors are the most stereotypical family in the series, as they are Italian-based, but the family is run by 3 brothers in Little Italy after the death of their father, who was the old Don. The Gandors, in my honest opinion, are most reminiscent of the Genovese family, and even more particularly, it reminds me the most of the Corleone family from the Godfather book and the movie trilogy. It's made up of 3 brothers, similar to how Sonny, Fredo, and Michael Corleone each help run the family at different points in the story of The Godfather. Also, they're similar in how the Genovese and in turn the Corleone family resist the drug trafficking business that became so popular at the time among the other families. And that's only because of the fact that they felt it was a bad business to get into. So, even though they seem to be more heavily based on the fictional Corleone family, the Gandors do have similarities with the real mafiosos. Next, still sticking to New York, are the Martillo family. The Martillos are the only Camaristas in the series, so a little explanation is needed for them, but they are still a very interesting part of history. The Camorra work differently from the Mafia families in that they don't work on a pyramid scheme of leadership, and instead work in more of a clan-based operation. There's still a top man in charge, but after him there are multiple different leaders in charge of different smaller clans. At the time, it was even common for there to be fighting among the Camorra themselves. Now, the Martillo family doesn't have any particular family that they seem to be similar to in too many ways, especially since the Camorra were all but dismantled in the 1930s, but it's still very interesting to see where the structure of the Martillo family is based. And the last of our families is the Russo family, which is an easy family to make similarities to since they're based out of Chicago instead of New York City. The Russo family is a definite reference to the Chicago outfit, who were known for their viciousness and their brutality. Lad Russo himself seems to exemplify this, as during his attempted massacre on board the Flying Pussyfoot, I knew I was going to have to say it again, he bathes in the blood of his victims and gets a feel of ecstasy from killing. I would also say that Lad Russo could be a reference to Al Capone, who was one of the creators of the outfit and the leader from 1925 until his incarceration in Alcatraz in 1931. And anyone who has seen the series knows that that is exactly what happens to Lad after the events on the Flying Pussyfoot, which conveniently takes place in 1931. But the only thing is that the original light novel, both Al Capone and Lucky Luciano, who was the founder of the Genovese family, are mentioned. So, while I would love to make that association of Lad Russo being a reference to Al Capone, I can't really do it knowing that he was actually mentioned in the novel officially. But hey, still, it almost seems a little too similar to not be a reference, so I guess I'm just going to leave it at that. Finally, the last group that I want to mention today is also my favorite group from the series, Issac and Miria. Now, these two are almost too obvious to even put on this list, but even still, I couldn't not talk about them. They are easily a reference to the famous duo of Bonnie and Clyde. Bonnie and Clyde Barrow were 2 famous criminals who went around famously robbing banks, convenience stores, and gas stations with a small group of people, and causing a huge commotion during the time period from 1932 until 1934, when they were killed during a shootout with police. Not only does the time period once again match up very well with the series, but Issac and Miria are extremely similar to the real-life duo, as they go around the country from place to place, robbing stores and sticking people up, and even being jokers amongst themselves. Miria is even more similar to Bonnie than that of what was popularized in the stories and by the famous 1967 movie based on the two. In the stories, Bonnie is depicted as a ruthless woman who totes a machine gun and doesn't mind gunning people down on a moment's notice. But in real life, according to the gang members who survived, Bonnie was actually quite similar to Miria and hardly ever held a gun, let alone used it. The only thing is, I don't really remember the part in history where Bonnie and Clyde became immortal and traveled to Japan in the late 2000s to cameo in another series. I guess that part was left out of the story. Still, it's easy to tell the similarities, though, and they make for some great comedy on the trip that we follow them through. Now, as these characters are fictional, they aren't exactly like the people I compared them to, but it's still really cool to see how they match up to real-life people, and even to see how certain groups match up timeline-wise, too. I myself love to see characters based on real people, especially ones from history, and I love all those little references being made here and there. Now, maybe some families aren't who you would think that they would be, and maybe you can even make some more connections between characters and real-life people that I never even would have thought of. So I would love to see anyone's comments down below to make those connections. But anyways, I think it's about time that I stop boring you with a history lecture. Maybe next time I do a history video, maybe it'll be on something more interesting. Maybe Mein Kampf. Well, anyways, that's all she wrote. See you next time. Hey, thanks for checking out my second video. I'm surprised I actually made it to a second video this time, especially since as of finishing the script, I've reached a whole 8 views, which I'm still thinking is just for me checking out my own video for various reasons. Though, I'm really glad I drove through and finished this, since I figure the more videos I put out, the more likely a chance I'll have of actually getting more than a few views. Anyways, I noticed some things with my last video while viewing it again, and I realized I really need to make sure to keep my microphone closer to my mouth. At times, my voice sounds great, and then occasionally it just randomly sounds like it's totally far away. I need to get a proper mic stand if I'm going to be doing this properly, and at some point I'll probably do a re-recording of the first video and re-upload it, but don't know so far, because with college classes having started up and work, my time is way more constrained. Once again, feel free to comment down below and let me know what you think I could have done better in this video. I'm always down for constructive criticism. Also, again, I hate to be that guy, but if you liked this video and want to see more, feel free to like and subscribe. It really helps me out, and I do plan on uploading more videos in the future, so be sure to look out for any new videos coming up. I'm thinking of doing my next video on either Full Metal Alchemist or on the recent issues with the American version of Ghost in the Shell and whitewashing. It should be up within the next 2 or even 3 weeks, so look forward to it. Thanks a lot!